great. Oh my gosh, he's so nice. He visits the elderly. He shovels my walk. He is fantastic with the kids. He's the best scout leader ever. You know, all that is masking what could be happening at home. When we say quick involvement, generally on the relationships that we see domestics pop up quickly, it's a quick engagement and a quick marriage, and then a lot of times it is the isolation that they're moving away. So they'll try to get in a relationship quickly and try to move things a little faster because they know internally if they wait too long, they might be found out that they have this rage that pops up if it's a long relationship. So I try to tell my kids date a long time before. Anyway, cruel tongue, obviously, they can be very mean, and that comes with the control and being critical. There's the blame game, which was tremendous. There's the confusion, physical abuse, obviously. And we do see a lot of, if you see someone, kicking that dog or punting that cat, it's not always indicative of what they're doing at home, but a lot of times it is, which is odd. What motivates them? It could be all sorts of things. And we're not psychologists. We're not going to really get into that. We don't want you to provide therapy. But when that person chooses control and chooses their will over supposedly the people that they love or care about, that's when we start having concerns. Because once they're choosing themselves over supposedly the people they love, that's when it starts to spiral downward. Because it's all about them and not about the people they supposedly love. So we see the role of alcohol and drugs as more of a magnifier more than anything. Alcohol and drugs never cause the problem. They just magnify it quite a bit. So you see a lot of victims say, oh, he only beats me when he's drunk. Well, even when he's sober, I bet he's not nice to you. But yes, when he's drunk, he's a lot more evil, and that's when you can't deal with him. Or when he's using drugs or coming off of drugs, he's to that intolerable level that you can't deal with anymore. But when you start having questions and having these interviews with either the victim or the suspect, you learn that it's not the drugs or the alcohol, it's the personality that's really causing the problem.
And one thing is to note is that it's not uncommon for our victims to also have a substance abuse problem. It's their way of coping. They're in this horrible situation, and the only way they're able to deal with it day to day is through prescription drugs, alcohol, other drugs. It's important that treatment can be effective, but if she's not safe, if her children are not safe, you need to address that underlying factor in order for the treatment to be fully successful. So it's not disregarding what a victim is saying just because they may have a substance abuse problem, that there's a lot of resources and things that can be done to help them as well. Let's see.
Yeah. Obviously, as a faith-based leader, we're going to talk to, or you're going to talk to, generally both people. Because they're going to be in your congregation or whatnot, to where the one comes in and naturally you want to talk to the other because you're going to try to head off the problem before it either gets worse or get them resources, and you can't get one resource without talking to the other. So it is not about just helping the victim, but you also need to encourage that abuser to get help. And there's a lot of great programs out there, 12-step things you can go to. Therapy's always great because that person might just be dealing with something you're not aware of. Getting that person help, this is stuff that can be recoverable to some, so we can't just, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to, deal with both problems that are there, both the person getting victimized and the abuser, to see if we can help them. So yeah, a lot of these slides will say the same thing. We've got to start with believing the person coming in, because it is so hard for that person to even come in the first place. Once they come in, they've been dealing with it a long time and barely have the strength to tell you. The worst thing you could do is questioning it or roll your eyes, or even the officers out in the crowd will tell you, we've got to work on our facial expressions as officers, because when we're told these horrific things, if we act out even in disbelief or, oh my gosh, written on your face, that a lot of time turn that person off because, oh, they're not going to believe me. And that can do a lot of harm. Some things to keep in mind when you're meeting with the abuser. We've got to tell the person, you have got to step up legally If it is something that is criminal, that is something you cannot avoid. It will come back to bite you several different ways. You have to tell the abuser, you have to get help, but you also need to take care of this legally. Because that's going to protect you and give you another resource, because you're not going to have a lot of consequences you can delve on this person. Or maybe a judge can mandate the counseling, the therapy, that kind of stuff that's going to help that person out. Obviously, you're going to stress to the abuser, hey, it's not your wife's or your husband's fault. You've got to own up. That is your fault. You acted out, in a way that is not acceptable, and you've got to have them accept that. When they start playing the blame game, you do have to put them in check. Don't give them that out going, well, yeah, I can see if my wife or my husband is doing that, you can't let them have that out. You have to have them accept responsibility. Obviously, if they're abusers in jail as an ecclesiastical leader, you need to be really careful. Because if you go bail out that person that has just beat his wife or beat her husband, that's going to send a message to that victim that might not be what you want. If you think they should be bailed out, let someone else do it. Don't do it as the church leader, the ecclesiastical leader. And if you need to go visit, let them know you're visiting.